Michael Harris has already accomplished a lot early in his career, but for many of us out there, we think there's another level for Michael Harris. We're going to take a look back at his 2024, what he needs to improve on going forward to take that next step. We'll discuss all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopABall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. If you're new and watching this on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. If you're already subscribed or you just subscribed, hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below so others can find us here at Locked On Braves. Got a lot of content coming your way this offseason. We're not even really gotten started yet on the off season, but with the World Series happening this upcoming week, at some point, it's finally going to happen. I think we'll really dive into the off season, what the Braves could do and what it looks like. So make sure you're subscribed here to Locked On Braves. You're listening on the audio version. Leave me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much to all those who listen to us each and every day. I really do appreciate it. Today's episode, we are going to do a deep dive into Michael Harris. Take a look back at his 2024 and set you up for what could be in 2025 and beyond. I think the sky is the limit for Michael Harris. I know a lot of you do as well, like Z Corp Alpha in here live, saying that Harris is extremely talented. I think that's putting it lightly. Michael Harris is a very good, talented player, still very young, and I think there's some untapped potential with him that hopefully we get to see in 2025. So we'll be discussing all that on today's episode, which is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Michael Harris, to me, was one of the guys that I was most excited about going into 2024. Now, one of the other ones was Sean Murphy, and that certainly didn't work out. But Michael Harris was a guy that, again, like Sean Murphy, I picked up on a lot of my fantasy teams because I just felt like this was going to be the year that he went from a really good player to all-star player. But unfortunately for him, like for a lot of Braves players, injuries held him back. A slow start held him back and took a while to recover. Man, at the end of the year, he was one of the better players for the Braves, but it still felt like we weren't able to get to that next level for Michael Harris. Now, what we all have to remind ourselves of, because he came up so young and was so spectacular so soon, he's still just going into his age 24 season. And he's already accumulated over 10 F-WAR, and that's despite not playing in more than 140 games in a season yet. So again, there is a lot already to like about Michael Harris. And I think we've really seen the floor of his potential. I think there's so much more here to be untapped with Michael Harris. But let's get into 2024. Just 110 games played as he missed two months with a hamstring injury. He slashed 264, 304, 418. Those are not great numbers for Michael Harris. 16 home runs, 10 stolen bases. That's not great either. Just a 4.9% walk rate. Not somebody that walks a lot, but also somebody that doesn't strike out a ton. Just a 20% strikeout rate. A 300 batting average on balls in play. This is well below where it was the last 2 years. It was 334 in 2023. It was 361 in 2022. So is he somebody that is going to be able to live off a high BABIP? Or was this a regression more to, because 300 is typically, about average for a hitter. So are we going to see him with more of that type of BABIP, or was this the fluke and we're going to see more of around 330? I don't think you can really ask for 360 like he got in his rookie year, but I think with his speed, he's somebody that his BABIP is going to be higher than his average, and it's going to help pull his average up to the 280 range, where I think it will be most of his career. A 99 WRC plus, so he was a league average player offensively, and 2 F-WAR, which was mostly carried by his great defense. So this was not a good season. It was not a great season offensively. It was about a league average season offensively. And certainly by Michael Harris's standards that he set in his first 2 seasons, this is a down year for him. And in a down year, he was an average player. Baseball Savant, everything was basically the same. You compare, his metrics from last year to this year, they're basically identical. In fact, for his first 3 years, his barrel percentage has been 10.1%, 10%, and 10%. It's about as consistent as you can get. His average exit velocity has been 89.5 miles per hour, 90.9 miles per hour, and 90.5 miles per hour. So all within a 1 degree or 1 mile per hour difference there. His hard hit percentage was down just by 1 point, though. Nothing really unusual. Now, he had an expected batting average of 288 and an expected slug of 470. And if you remember back from the numbers I gave you a minute ago, his actual batting average was 264, more than 20 points less than his expected batting average. His actual slug was 418. His expected slug was 470. And if you look on Baseball Savant and you can look at the numbers of the difference between your actual batting average and your expected batting average, your actual slug and your expected slug, and you can filter that by who essentially was the unluckiest player based on their batted ball profile. And Michael Harris was 18th in terms of the difference between his slug and expected slug. Riley was 14th in that. And he was 17th in his batting average versus expected batting average. So certainly there was some bad luck for Michael Harris this past year with the batted ball profile pretty much being the same and how he contacted the baseball. The only thing that really stands out for me in 2024 for Michael Harris is that he had more infield pop-ups. It seemed like a lot of Braves had more infield pop-ups this year. I don't know what that is all about, but it went from 5.6% in 2023 to 11.5% in 2024. And obviously infield pop-outs are about one of the worst things that you can do. And he pulled the ball a lot more. And this, I think, is maybe a larger issue with Michael Harris in 2024. He pulled the ball 34.7% in 2022 and then 35.8% in 2023. It was all the way up to 42.1% in 2024. So you're talking about a 7% increase in his pull rate. And look, if you're pulling the ball and getting lift on it, that's what you want to maximize power. Again, this is a philosophy we've talked about and we're going to talk about a lot. It's that all or nothing approach. I don't think Michael Harris needs to be that guy. I am okay with Michael Harris hitting 20 to 25 home runs and batting 280, 290. I'm okay with that. So again, I don't know if that was a conscious adjustment to try to get to more power by pulling the baseball more. It certainly did not lead to better results for him in 2024. So if that was a conscious decision, I hope it is one that they reevaluate in the offseason and see him be a guy that can spray the ball a little bit more all over the field to get that higher batting average. The ground ball rate was slightly higher than 2023, but nothing crazy. So again, the only thing that I really point to in that batted ball profile is just the pull rate. He was pulling the ball a lot more. And as Lav says here, I think his power will come naturally as he gets older. And I agree. He has shown good opposite field power. He has good power. His max exit velocity numbers have gone up each year. He has really good raw power. He doesn't have to pull to get to it. He can certainly take it to the opposite field. So again, I don't know if that was just a fluky thing and a fluky year that a lot of Braves hitters were having, or if that was a conscious decision to pull the baseball more. But again, it didn't work. It didn't lead to better results. So hopefully he goes back to being a guy that can spray the ball all over the field a little bit better in 2025. He was one Braves hitter who was better against four-seamers in 2024 compared to 2023, although it was close to what he did against that pitch. It wasn't close to what he did against that pitch in 2022 when he just absolutely crushed four-seamers. However, he really struggled against sinkers in 2024. So that is a pitch that really got to him. He hit just 210 against sinkers with a 258 slug. That was after hitting over 300 against sinkers in 2023. So another one of those oddities about this Braves team in 2024 that I just don't understand. But he really struggled against that pitch this year. He saw it about the same amount of time, just wasn't able to get good results on it this year. all of his plate discipline numbers, I'm talking about O swing percentage, zone swing, all of those plate discipline numbers were within 1 to 2 percentage points of where they were last year. So again, nothing really out of the ordinary there. Now, he did swing at more pitches inside the zone, 65.9% to 69.2%. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And he made less contact inside the zone, but not by a lot, 85.7% to 84.8%. So he swung at more pitches inside the zone, but he made contact with fewer pitches inside the zone by a little bit. He also swung at a few more pitches outside of the zone and made less contact on those pitches as well. But his contact percentage overall was down just 1.4%. So again, nothing crazy out of the ordinary there when you look at batted ball profile, plate discipline. The only thing that's just really different from where it was last year is the pull rate. And he pulled the ball 7% more in 2024. All right, next we'll take a look at his defense, and then I'm going to tell you the steps that Michael Harris needs to take in order to get to the next level and what I think the ceiling is for Michael Harris. Is he a Gold Glover? Is he an All-Star? Is he a 30-30 candidate? Is he an MVP candidate? I'll answer those questions here next. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event, and you don't when you use Gametime. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And Gametime is also a authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Maybe you got an itch. You want to go to one of these World Series games? Maybe you're making big money, because that's what it's going to take. You can check out the Gametime app. They got killer last-minute deals. Again, I tell you all the time about my experience using Gametime. It's the only ticketing app I use now to go to Braves games, and I'm constantly watching when I am thinking about going to a game because those prices will drop. They have flash sales happening all the time, and sometimes those tickets get even cheaper right up to game time. You can see the view from your seat right there in the app, and you can filter it so you see that all-in price so you know what you're paying. It's just such a user-friendly app to use. It's so easy, so convenient. And again, you get some great deals. You also get the Gametime guarantee, which means you'll get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section in a row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen solely, getting you ready for the World Series, which I think is finally happening this weekend. It feels like it's been a while, but make sure you're subscribed to Locked On MLB. And again, check them out after you finish this episode. You can find that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're getting close to finishing out our player preview, review, whatever you want to call it, from this past season and previewing the offseason for them as well. We're going to do Acuna tomorrow, so that should be a pretty exciting one. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves. You get that notification when we go live or post a new episode. Let's jump back into the Michael Harris conversation, though, and let's move to his defense because he is really exciting. Obviously, one of the most exciting players in all of baseball defensively. As Jeffrey Humphreys says, Harris' defense is a must watch. And I agree with that. It was painful at times to find something that was a must watch on this Braves team last year, and you never really know when it's going to happen. But just knowing that Michael Harris is out there in center field, and look, Jared Kelenic did a great job of filling in center field the best that he could. It's kind of like I talked about on the Ozzie Albies episode. You could see the difference. You could feel the difference in defense when Yorme or Whit Merrifield was out there compared to Ozzie. You could see the difference. You could feel the difference when Michael Harris is out there compared to Jared Kelenic. Those balls that are in the gap that you think, oh no, is the center fielder going to get to this? Those were no problem with Michael Harris out there. Not to mention the spectacular plays, the home run saving catches that he made. I mean, it's fun to watch, and it's fun to tune in every night. When you know a ball or you see a ball hit to center field, you know Michael Harris is on it, and it's just really fun to watch. He had 11 defensive runs saved this past year, which is the most of his career so far, and he had a UZR of +7, also a career high, two of the big metrics on FanGraphs. His fielding run value on Savant was +8, which is the same as 2023 and one less than 2022. His outs above average on Savant was 8, which is also the best of his career. It seems pretty clear that he's going to win a Gold Glove at some point, although there is a lot of good competition in the National League right now with Jacob Young and Britton Doyle. Pete Crow Armstrong of the Cubs seems like he's going to be a perennial contender for a Gold Glove out there. Looking at the Gold Glove finalists this year, you did have Young, you had Doyle, you had Perkins. I'm not sure how Blake Perkins was a finalist over Michael Harris. It doesn't really matter in the end because I think either Jacob Young or Britton Doyle is going to win it. But Michael Harris and Blake Perkins were pretty similar. Michael Harris had the better FanGraphs defensive metrics. Perkins had the better Savant defensive metrics by just a little bit. Again, it doesn't matter because it's either going to be Young or Doyle that wins it, but it would have been nice to see Michael Harris get that. And again, they played the same number of games. I think the only excuse you could make for not having Michael Harris as a finalist for the award is that he didn't play enough games, but he and Perkins played pretty much the identical innings in center field this year. So again, nothing major because neither one of them are going to win it anyway. But again, I would have liked to see Michael Harris be a finalist, but his defense is so good. We know he's going to win one day, if not multiple. So just love watching Michael Harris in center field. So that is the player that Michael Harris is. I think the question for a lot of Braves fans is, what player can Michael Harris be? What is the ceiling for Michael Harris? And I posed this question on social media, and I'm going to read some of your responses later, but I'm going to give you mine first. Can he win a Gold Glove? We already talked about that. That seems like a given at this point. I don't think it's a question of will he win a Gold Glove, but how many will he win? So the next question for me is, will he be an All-Star? That also seems like a given to me. I feel like at some point, Michael Harris is going to reach an All-Star game. In fact, I think he makes multiple All-Star games in the future. So the next question I have is, can Michael Harris be a 30-30 player? Now, to get to 30-30, you have to first get to 2020, and he hasn't accomplished that yet. He was 1 home run shy of getting there in 2022 and 2 home runs shy in 2023. This past year, he was 4 home runs and 10 stolen bases short of reaching that. So again, he's still got a long climb to go, but I think that's what he's capable of. I'm not as confident in that as I am the first 2 predictions, that he'll win multiple Gold Gloves, make multiple All-Star teams. I can't say confidently that he'll have a 30-30 season, but I think he's capable of it. John says MH2 future Hall of Famer. I don't know about that. Double A saying he can hit 30-40. Well, we're going to talk about stolen bases more in a minute. I would love to see him get to 40. I just don't know what that is. Jeffrey Humphrey says MH2 ceiling is to emulate Andrew Jones. I would love to see that. It's at more of an average and maybe not as much power type of guy. At least Andrew, especially in the later years, was kind of a detriment average-wise, but still hitting 40 home runs. But certainly defensively, I think that's what we're hoping for. And then my final question is, can he win an MVP? That seems like a bit of a reach to me at the moment. I don't think he gets to Acuna levels. I don't think we see an 8-WAR season out of Michael Harris. Maybe we do, just because the defense has the ability to puff that up a little bit. But I don't think he reaches MVP levels. So maybe that's one we disagree on. Let me know, certainly, if you think he can get there. He did finish 13th in the MVP voting in 2022. So I could see him getting some votes, maybe even a top 10, maybe even a top 5 finish. But I'm not sure I see him winning an MVP one day. So again, I think the ceiling for me is a guy who makes multiple all-star games, a guy that's maybe a 30-30 threat, but not quite a guy that's to the MVP level. So I think that's the potential for Michael Harris. I think that's the ceiling for him. So what does he have to do to reach that? One is stay healthy. And saw a lot of conversation in the chat. Z Corp talking about, health is always an issue. He's got to stay healthy. And again, that's a pretty obvious one. But the first 2 months of 2023, he was dealing with back issues. So he got out to a slow start. Basically, the first 2 months of 2023 were a wash for him, or else he would have gotten a 2020 season, maybe even a 30-30 season. This past year, he missed 2 months with a hamstring injury, and then it took him a few weeks to get going. A better start. He's got to get off to better starts. And again, this is somewhat health related. The back issues in 2023 didn't help. And then in 2022, he didn't get called up to the end of May, but he's hitting just 183 in May so far for his career and almost 200 at bats. He's got to get off to better starts, whether that's just making sure you're healthy and ready to go when the season starts, whatever the case may be. He's gotten off to some slow starts, particularly the last 2 years. He's finishing strong, which is great. And if you were going to do one or the other, I think you'd rather him just finish strong. I would rather him just be good throughout. But so far, at least the past 2 years, we've seen him get off to slow starts and then finish strong. Let me get a full season. He was the best hitter for the Braves at the end of the regular season, and by far their best hitter in the postseason, where he was 5 for 8 after going just 1 for 27 in his first 2 trips to the postseason. So I was happy to see him kind of get that monkey off his back to show that he can perform in the biggest moments in the postseason. And he was just so good down the stretch. And after those first 2 months in 2023, I mean, he was amazing. He was one of the better players in baseball. It's just, can he stay healthy all year long? Can he produce like that all year long and to those levels? The other thing for me is, and I alluded to it later, is I need to see him steal more bases. I need to see him be more of a stolen base threat. And I think the hamstring injury held him back a little bit in 2024, but he needs to at least steal 20 bases a year. And really, in a 140-game season where he plays 140 games or more, I think the floor needs to be 30 steals for Michael Harris. He has to get to that next level for me. He has to be more of a stolen base threat. He has the speed to do it. He's got to get better at stealing bases. I think that needs to be an emphasis for him in the offseason, because this past year, whether it was the hamstring or not, he was just 10 for 16 in stolen bases. Now, before that, in his first 2 years, he was 40 for 46. So he was good, although he wasn't going as much as I would have liked to see. But going forward, he has to be a better base stealer, and he has to be more aggressive in stealing bases. It's got to be at least 20 steals a year. And again, I think if he's playing a full season, I think it needs to be at least 30. There's got to be more of a focus for him becoming a better base stealer. And that will increase his impact so much, significantly, if he can just do that. And the final thing for me is, and this may be one of the biggest things, better plate discipline. And that's probably one of the last things to come for a guy who is still a young hitter. It also just may be his philosophy. I mean, I've been waiting for Ozzie Albies to become a better, more disciplined hitter at the plate for almost 10 years now, and it hasn't happened. He's still gotten the results. It's just frustrating at times to watch. But I feel like Michael Harris has that ability to improve his plate discipline. And here's what I mean. The league average O-swing percentage, so that's the percentage of swings that you take on pitches outside of the zone, that average, MLB average, was 31.8% in 2024. He had an O-swing percentage of 39.4%. So he is swinging at pitches outside of the zone 8% more of the time than the league average. That's chasing a lot of pitches. The league average swing percentage, so this is just the percentage of pitches you swing at, was 47.8% in 2024. He had a swing percentage of 54.9%, so almost 55%. He is swinging a lot. He is very aggressive. And again, that's the approach of a lot of Braves hitters. The league average swinging strike percentage was 11.1% in 2024. This is basically whiff rate for hitters. He had a swinging strike percentage of 12.9%, so almost 2% higher than the league average. He was swinging and missing. And then finally, his zone contact percentage and his contact percentage are both league average. So again, he's making contact. To me, it's just the types of pitches he's swinging at needs to improve. He has to do a better job of swinging at pitches inside the zone and making more quality. He makes quality contact. We talked about that earlier. His barrel percentage, his hard hit rates, all of that is good. It's just when you're chasing this many pitches outside the zone, it's going to lead to some bad contact. It's going to lead to a lot of infield pop-ups. It's going to lead to you rolling over on balls, pulling them to the right side more often. So for me, the last biggest hurdle for Michael Harris is just his plate discipline. laying off more pitches outside the zone, being more selective, and then making a good contact with those pitches inside the zone. It's really not a lot that he needs to do to get to that next level, in my opinion. Being a better base stealer, being more selective at the plate, and just staying healthy and getting off to good starts. I mean, that's if Michael Harris can do that, and I think he can do that starting in 2025, we're going to see him start to reach that ceiling of an all-star player, of a 30-30 threat, and somebody that's going to get some MVP votes if he doesn't ultimately win one, because Shohei Ohtani is going to exist. And oh, by the way, he's going to pitch next year. And Ronald Acuna, his own teammate, is going to be back and going to be threatening for that MVP, as well as maybe some of his other teammates like an Austin Riley or a Matt Olson are going to get some MVP votes if they get back to their typical selves. So again, I think it's all there for Michael Harris. All the parts and pieces are there. Just we haven't seen him put it all together yet, and he's still been a really good player. Again, I think 2024 is probably going to be the low mark for Michael Harris, and he was still a 2-win player. So again, I cannot wait to see what the future holds for Michael Harris. He's under control for a while. I think he's going to be an excellent player, and I'm really excited. I'm excited to see what you think as well. I think many of you are on the same page as me as far as what the ceiling is for him. I'll get into some of your comments here next. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season off with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. And if you're excited about the World Series, they have daily specials out there. World Series odds, the Dodgers are at -122 right now. World Series specials, any player to record 30-plus total bases in the World Series and break the all-time record. Awards, World Series MVP, Ohtani is the favorite at +230 with Judge at +500. And they have the 2025 World Series odds already out, and your Atlanta Braves have the third best odds at the moment at +800, which is pretty incredible thinking about the season that we just went through. But that's how much talent is still here with this team. And you can check all that out at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, I want to jump into some of the listener comments real quick. I asked you, what do you think the ceiling is for Michael Harris? Chris1414 says 30-30 potential for sure. He's the closest talent to Acuna on this team. Dustin Mounts, if he stays healthy, all of the above are in contention for MVP with Shohei in the NL, but realistically, a 283-20 hitter, 25 to 35 home runs, and 35 to 40 stolen bases. I think that is probably the ceiling for him as well, and that's really good. Emmanuel, I'm sure multiple All-Stars and Gold Gloves are in MH2's future. 30-30, I hope, maybe with a full, healthy prime season. Jay Rowell, he's got to become a way better base stealer to get 30 bags, but his speed is obviously good enough to be 30-30, and that's kind of the point I was making earlier. I think the speed is there. It's just, is he a good base stealer, and is that something he can learn? I think he can. James Hyatt, I think he could be the next Andrew Jones. Brendan, I think MVP is possible. If he can go 30-30 with a 310 average in his plus defense, the physical tools are all there if he can put it all together. Ben definitely has the potential for all the above. Unfortunately for him, Ohtani plays in the same league, making the MVP nearly impossible. Joshua Julian, perennial all-star Gold Glover, maybe some 2020 or even 30-20 seasons if he can avoid the typical slow start, but he doesn't seem to have the instincts to steal 30 bases. Some of the same things we talked about. I think that's a fair point. Annoying Braves fan, all-star and Gold Glove for sure. I don't think the bat is consistent enough for MVP 30-30 level. Maybe if he stays healthy a full season, we could see 30-30, I guess. Either way, incredibly valuable player. Big Dog fan says all the above. Dylan Sampson's earring says the ceiling, sky is the limit for him if he can fix a few things, kind of like we talked about. Russ says the first three are well within his grasp if he manages a complete injury-free year for sure. Anthony, first two, he should get multiple times, talking about All-Star and Gold Glove. 30-30, if he puts a healthy season together and everything breaks right. MVP is going to be a long shot with guys like Ohtani, Ronald, Betts, and Harper in the same league. TPC, I'd be happy with a full season. I agree there. Zach from PrizePicks says more bags in the future for sure. Hunter Mayer says 30-30, not an MVP. So most people agree with where I'm at. And then I think All-Star and Gold Glove, multiple All-Star and Gold Gloves seem like a given. 30-30 is questionable, maybe in his best season. MVP is a long shot, but I think he gets both. So I think a lot of the listeners are on the same page that I am with Michael Harris and where he is going to be in the future, which is a really, really good player. Z Corp says, yes, Harris has a bright future. E. Balder is here with me live, says, what's a career season look like for him in your opinion? I think it is that 30-30 season. And like maybe he doesn't get those stolen bases, but I think that's what his career season looks like. A 310 average, 30 plus home runs, 30 plus stolen bases. I think that is the career year for Michael Harris. And I think he gets there. I think he has that career season. Doug LB says Harris 30-30, 360 plus on base, Gold Glove defense. Again, I think that's the ceiling for him for sure. And I think he's more than capable of reaching that. Z Corp, don't we have the All-Star game finally in Atlanta in 2025? We do finally. They're giving it back to us after they wrongfully took it away from us the first time. So we are going to get that. The battery says, have you heard anything about Braves on TV next season? It's going to be the same as it was this year. It's just going to be a new name. Instead of Bally, it's going to be FanDuel Sports Network, I think is what it's going to be called. I was actually watching a hockey game earlier, and they've already switched it over to FanDuel Sports and TV, whatever. It's not a great name, but it's just a different name. But it's going to be, all that the same where you find it, and everything is going to be the same. All right, thank you all for joining me here live. We got the battery, Glenn Dice, Jeffrey Humphreys, Doug, Jeff Barry, E. Baldera on here as well. Z Corp, Protect PR. Thank you all. Blaine Farnsworth, haven't seen you in a while. Thanks for joining here. Appreciate you all joining me here live for today's episode. But that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button if you have not already. Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen, and make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.